All right, well, I posted a Halloween tutorial demo, a scene last week, and I thought I'd take advantage of one more opportunity to get another one done before Halloween. I'm posting this on Halloween. I'm going to paint a skull. It's a long-standing thing I normally do in my observation class or my watercolor class of painting skulls. They're just kind of fun to do, and they can really kind of let you riff on the colors used to model out the forms. So, hey, I'm Rusty Nelson, your college art professor, and we're painting a human skull today for Halloween. Let's get going. So here's the setup. Got my reference on the corner there. I've got my sketch here on the paper. This is a 300-pound Grumbacher paper, and I got my little mini pan here. So I think we're ready to go, and we're going to get a little spooky with a Halloween skull. All right, I'm going to use a 3/4 inch flat to start with here, and I'm going to start out. I'm going to lay down the yellow tones on the skull first. So I'm going to get some of these yellow ochres and yellow kind of going here. It's going to be fairly thin. I don't need a lot of dense colors, and it's really all going to happen right in and around this area here, right there. So I can just kind of play around with that and just let the colors go wherever. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Nice yellow tints and tinges. There we go. Again, I'll just kind of riff along with this. I sketched it up pretty quick to get this freehand sketch of the skull done. I wasn't worried terribly about being absolutely accurate to the photograph. And I think this will work pretty nicely. We'll get it right there on the teeth. These teeth here, right down in through here. I see my brush is picking up some of the pigment of the graphite that I used. So I'm getting more of a green color going, but that's all right. So I'm just going to get ahead and get all of this flowing with yellows and keep it damp. There we go. Then I'm going to mix in some oranges, because there's some pretty serious oranges in here as well, especially on this side, over here, right along that nose. It's going to be nice and soft, and it's going to meld nicely with the yellows. Right there's a pretty serious color. Right over here, let's get some of that yellow and orange interaction. Even right there on that teeth, I'm going to throw quite a bit right there. That front one has just a bit. This one has a lot back here. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Again, if it's too tight, too sharp, it's not melding enough, I just come in and I'll loosen it up. All right, there we go. So again, I'm going to play a little fast and loose with my colors in this, throwing some of this stuff in the background. That'll create some nice color complexities, loosening some of it up. There we go. Oh yeah, so that's fun. All right, so scrub that in, get that over there. That's actually a good color. Picking up that graphite and creating that greenish color is kind of working. All right, right in here, I'm going to soften that up. All right, so that's looking pretty cool. All right, And I'm going to let that dry. So that's really kind of my first step. And getting this going here, I'm going to throw a little bit right here as well. Let's see where this goes. I'm going to keep a live edge, a irregular edge on this one. And as soon as this warm layer dries, I'm going to come in and go after the blues, the cools, and we'll layer down a layer of the cools and establish the shadow tints and hues in there. So give me a minute and we'll get started on this in just a second. All right, so I've cleaned off my palette a little bit. I'm going to get some of this phthalo blue going. Actually, that is more of a, yeah, it's phthalo. There we go. So it's a fairly thin mixture, a tea mixture that we can definitely come in and start dropping in some of that. It might be a little bit intense, so if it is, I'm going to throw a little burnt sienna into it, and that'll knock it down just a bit. Still cool, but yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to go ahead, and that was pretty darn wet, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll just get this little sucker working. Yeah. Yeah, we got some pretty good undertones, nice some underpainting with that yellow. We'll lift that out just a little bit right there. Pull it down. Good. All right. Fairly thin. You can really see that nice color interaction right there. I'm going to pull it in right here. Find that shape right there. Good. All right, so we'll get a little more going right in there. Pull it down. Got that divot right in through here. We'll get a little more right there. Soften that out a little more. Throw some of it right up under here. There we go. Right along in here. That's working. And right down in here. All right. And I'm going to throw some of that crunchiness right down in here. I'm going to go ahead. Now I'm working just on the skull at the moment, so here's where I want a little more of that blue. A little brighter blue. It's looking pretty bright right in there. Good. Get that dirtier blue right up here. All right, cool. There we go. All right, now we're cooking. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get that shape right there established real quick. Get a little more burnt sienna in there. That's coming along nicely. Got a nice little shape happening. All right, come back over here, and I'm going to work on the background a little bit. Just get a nice color profile back here. I think I'll frame off this right down here like that. Okay, we'll throw some of that right up here. How's that looking? That's looking pretty cool. All right, I'm going to get a little more of this burnt. That's actually the sepia color. I'm going to get some of the, a little more of that ultramarine into it. A little more of this burnt sienna. All right, so that's all drying nicely. I'm going to just kind of ignore it at the moment down here. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to define this upper portion with some darker color. And it looks like it's still a little damp, so it's going to be a fairly soft edge, at least over here, and that's all right. I think I like that. Just going to keep coming around. There we go. And we'll just pull it away from the edge a little bit. Again, just vary my marks a bit. Still very damp right there. And come over, do the same thing right in here. And pop some of it right in there. That's working nicely. I'm going to throw a bunch of it right in over here. Okay. All right, I gotta fix a little thing real quick. I'm gonna grab my 1/4-inch brush. I'm gonna fix this tooth right there. I like that tooth. All right, I like that. That's starting to work. It's a little sharp up here, so I'm gonna just soften it out a little bit. Again, I'm trying to keep, I want to keep it a irregular edge on that. Let's soften this out just a little bit up here. Keep it kind of crunchy. That's starting to work. All right. And then it's lighter over here, so that's okay. I'm going to throw a little bit right there. I'm going to get that edge right there and right up under here. Okay. And that dark comes clear over to this side of the mandible. And it's really dark right up here. Throw some of that up there. And I'm going to get some of that really dark right up in here too. So I'm starting to saturate. And that's going to start creating some depth. I don't have enough saturation on most of the skull yet, and that will come. How's that looking? That's looking pretty good. I'm going to put a little separation to bring some of it down here. And then there is a nice fine line, comes right down along here, right down here along to the tooth. There we go. That's kind of cool. And then I'm going to pull this shape right here. Let me get a little more density to it. My paint's getting a little thin. All right, so we'll come around like this, come down. All right, cool. Yeah. That's looking pretty cool. And I'm going to unload my brush, and I'm just going to soften that up a little bit. Pull it out, pull that down. Cool. This needs to be a little softer. All right. So, and as you can really see, as this went down, it looks like it's pretty dark. But as it dries, it gets much lighter. All right. That's kind of cool. I'm going to grab that spot right there, soften it out a little bit. I'm going to throw a little more up here just to have a little more of an edge. Kind of this versus that. I kind of like the sharp things, but I also like the fuzzy edges too. So, and again, I'm not trying to push it out to an edge, so I do want some irregular aspects to it. So, all right, let's look here. I'm going to go now get a little more of a ultramarine, dirty ultramarine. I want to get a little more of this. This is burnt umber here. All right. Let's get a little more blue. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to throw some of it onto the figure. And I'll just start working it around and create some of the structure. All right. Again, we'll just push it around. And it's going to have some modeling to it. If I can get the right things happening. We'll try to capture some form. All right, let's get this shape right here. Get right under that eye. There we go. And we got some things happening right here. Right under that nose. There's some spots right here. And right in here, it's going to get darker. It's going to get really dark right in there. So let's pull that out. There we go. Oh, I didn't do the interior of the nose, the nasal cavity there. That would help immensely. Okay, so we'll just come in, try to keep it crunchy. all that crunchy stuff going on in there. I ought to switch to a smaller brush, but that's okay. I kind of like the density or the big shapes that this brush is kind of creating there. We'll create the tooth holes there. I'm going to do a couple over here too. Cool. All right, now we're singing. It's starting to work. All right, and I'll get a little more right along in here. Now that I'm going to feather out a little bit. All right, so we're coming along here. We'll throw okay, cool. All right, I need to soften this out a little bit right there. Again, just takes water, even if it's dried. There we go. All right, cool. All right. And I'm just going to kind of hit that shadow edge. All right, so I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. We're about halfway into this. We'll let that dry, and then we're going to come after stage 3. With stage 3, we'll come in and we'll start doing all the definition, the textures, the cracks in the skull, and even once that's done, we'll even come in and glaze in some darker saturated colors. Right now, it's overall, you can see it's much brighter in comparison to the skull in the photograph. Not that I am trying to match that perfectly, just kind of, it just needs more color complexities and a little more sophistication with the layers of colors. So we'll get to that in just a second. All right, well, it's dried for a few minutes, and we're going to get started on some structure and detail, textures that will saturate and glaze up a little more intense colors on this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with my number 3 brush. I'm going to come in and start finding some of the structure and edges and start building the piece up from there. So let's get going. Again, I'm going to get my burnt umber, sepia, and maybe mix a little ultramarine in there. This is thicker. This is definitely we're getting into a cream state here. All right, it's still very damp up here. Feel a lot of moisture up here. It's pretty nice down here. So that could be where I'm going to start working. All right, so actually I think I'll work right in this this little triangle of shapes with the nasal cavity and try to get some of the crunchiness to start happening in here. All right, cool. So it's all very dried bone and some irregular shapes, ins and outs, coming down, bending around like that. I'm going to keep after this little shape right there. Comes up. There we go. And we'll throw a little bit of it like that. There we go. There's some nice blues in there too that I'm going to try to capture later on as I readdress some of this. There we go. It's very dark right down in here. And that little piece is a weird little shape. There we go. Cool. All right. And I'm looking, there is a nice little soft little shape of ultramarine in there, if I can get it. Or I'm sorry, phthalo. We'll just throw a little more of a blue right there. There we go. We'll just lift it out. All right, so I'm going to let that dry. That's going to take a nice glaze here in a second. All right, so this one comes only right about to right there, and then it cuts across into the shadow. Okay, the shadow comes across, down and around, and we'll get a neat shape like that. Okay, saturate that to depth. There we go. And we do have a nice little crinkly thing there. Come right over here. I didn't get this. I think I need to pull that in a little further, and we'll pull it around like that. There we go. All right, yeah, we're starting to have some fun. That's starting to look kind of cool. It's all about contrast. That's what's making it start to sing. All right, and then we got a big old shape right there. I'm looking for the darkest darks in here right now, so right in here, I'm going to kind of pull that out and around. It's going to come down and around like that. A little structural outline there. Come in and we'll get some of this And this again, definitely. Normally we would do these in about I don't know. We'd warm up for about maybe 35 minutes doing various things, quick things. And then we'd kick over to this. If this was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, this would be like an hour-long exercise, a little study, working with our watercolor skills. There we go. And then once we get these shapes kind of established, we'll be able to come in with those glazes and really come after some of the saturated shapes and stuff. All right, so we got a great big crunch right in through here. Big shape. Okay. And then we'll come over here. We'll find that shape. Comes into the shape right there. And then it comes about like that. Comes out and around for that other tooth back there. So I'm doing a little bit of drawing. We'll soften some of that up. As needed. All right, let me look there. That's a pretty big molar. There we go. That's working good right there. And then these little touches of contrast right where the teeth separate. And then this tooth, you got that big molar back behind it, so. There we go. All right, now we'll just come in and get a little more of that. Again, this is just structural work. Once you get some of that structure in, you can then start making decisions on how much of all of the rest of the detail you'll have to work with. So you may or may not want more. If it reads good without it, then don't put it in. Let the viewer do some of the work as you're. All right, let's get these. All right, I'm going to do a little bit over here. Okay, let's get this eye socket going. And I might even throw a little bit of chunk over here. to do too much right there. I want to keep it fairly suggestive. And I might even just feather that out just a little bit. All right, let me get that brown again. All right, so I'm trying not to stick my hand in anything wet. It stays darker on this side of it. Goes clear up into this. Right there. All right. Let me get this over here. All right. Still haven't done what I was going to do. There, it comes clear up right to about right there. Got that whole great big shape. Comes down around like about right in there. And I hadn't drawn that correctly, so I took the opportunity to fix the problem right there. Again, we're kind of redefining the saturation of that hole. And it's really dark. It comes right down. It's almost this kind of a shape, right like that. There we go. So we'll just pop that in there like that. All right, cool. These are a lot of fun to do, especially in class. We have not only human skulls, we have animal cow skulls and horses and ram skulls. So they're a lot of fun to throw into a still life and work with. All right, so that's still pretty damp up there. He's starting to take on a nice form here, and I'm going to come in, get my 1/2 inch flat, and I'm going to glaze in a little more intense color. I'm going to get more of this burnt sienna, a little more orange right there. Kind of a dirty orange. All right, and I'm going to come in on this side, and we're going to glaze in some little dense, more dense colors in here. Right along this whole thing, right through here. Even on this tooth right there. Cool. Again, with the glazing, you got to be careful not to go over the same spot too much, or you're going to lift the work you've already done. All right, now it's pretty orange right over in here, so I'm going to glaze in a little more dense color. And it comes right along in here. And it's really dense right along here. Kind of shifts to a cooler color right in there. Almost a green too. Right up here on this spot right there like that. Unload my brush a little. I'm going to soften up some of those strokes. Cool. That's looking pretty cool. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So that gray big molar's blue, so it's going to be orange right there. That one's pretty orange. The other ones are staying fairly yellow, so I'll pull all of that orange. I want to throw a lot of that orange right down here along this chin and how it transitions. All right. soften some of that up. Cool. All right, and I got a little bit more. Oops, I'm getting dirty. There it is. All right, I'm going to throw, there's a nice hint of color right in there and right in through here. And right, I'm going to throw a little more right up on that. And maybe just a bit back here. Okay, cool. All right, that's working. All right, now I'm going to glaze in probably a little more of that color with just a little bit of yellow ochre in it. It's going to be more of a greenish blue. All right, and it's really right in through here. And then it's very, very much so over in here. And even on that part of the skull, comes in this way. Really dense right there. Dense on this back side over here. Right in here is very dark. Get that whole top portion again. And I'm just going to kind of try to create a mottled effect here. Actually, there's quite a bit of it right in on this thing too. Maybe right over in like that too. All right, now I'm going to take and we're going to cool off this side. I'm looking here. All right, so right along in here, I want to just kind of cool it off with some of this greenish color on this shadow side, right in through here. And we're going to pick up some of it right in through here as well, because it's very crunchy. That's pretty cool. Soften it up if I need to. Get my color again. Where else is it? It's very green right in there. That needs to dry though. I'm going to throw some of it right in through here. I'm going to have to redefine that. That needs a little more work. It softened up when I did the glaze on it. And I'm going to throw, yeah, as it comes around up here. Right along in here a little bit. Oh yeah. All right, so I'm going to switch my brush. I'm going to get some of that greenish orange. I'm going to thin it down considerably, and I'm going to work a little bit on these teeth, because they are not that white. They're greener. This one's pretty green. This one fairly green as well. This one has a green portion to it. Okay. All right, so I'm still kind of pushing and pulling. I still need to get some density right in this little triangular shape right there. All right, and then the interior there needs to be darker. So I'll move to a number 5 brush, get my thicker paint. All that stuff's drying. we're closing in on an hour into this, and that's about right. An hour, 2 hours for a nicely developed watercolor, and I'm trying to keep from letting the timer rule my life here. I think I'm going to start calling these the no timer series of watercolor demos, because I know people like seeing the real time, how long it takes to dry, how long the overall detail work takes versus the blocking. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So that darker work right there is coming in. Get that. There we go. That's still very wet. I really saturated that up there. So, and that is extremely light. It dried so much lighter. I'm going to get more of a blue color now, and I'm going to drop that saturation, that value range on that spot down. A little more saturated color. Oh, I just messed up my tooth. I'll fix that in a second. That's looking good. It's very dense and dark right up here as well. Again, if you want it lighter, just desaturate it. All right, let me get that. I'm going to get my flat 1/8 inch, quarter inch. I'm going to get that tooth right there. Cool. That's nice. And again, if I need to, I can come in with this brush or any number of brushes, and if I needed to, I can pop around and pull out some highlights if I lost them. And I've lost a few highlights, so I might throw a few back in on edges and things like that. Right back here, it's gotten too dark. I can come in and rescue that spot right there. Or even right here is kind of a spot that needs a little more brightness. Or right along this edge. Right up here next to the little divots. Want to soften that up right there. And I see a spot right in like these ridges on the teeth. They need to be brighter. They have that nice green underglow to them now. That's pretty sweet. That's a lot of fun. Let me get this tooth. Here we go. This tooth needs a little highlight right there. So I'm just painting negatively right now. So just pulling some of those highlights back up. This thing right here needs a little pop and highlight. And even right up here, we can kind of roll that form a little bit. All right. So that's why this stage, it's always the one for me that I can really start working and massaging the information and building form. There's a nice hot spot right there. I want to pull back up. There we go. And there's some additional colors I need to do right in there, some more work. But again, I can come in and do a little modeling work, finding the highlights. There's even a nice edge back here I could pull up. Right along here as well. This is just water. Now I can see this Grumbacher paper, it's not suffering a lot of abuse, so I'm being pretty careful. As soon as I see it starting to pill, I move on to another spot. So I need to saturate some spots right in here, but there's also a shape or two I need to work on right here. And I will accentuate that when that dries a little bit with some more, some additional colors right along here, even right along up in here, this edge. I think I was complaining to somebody the other day that doing the tutorials and everything on YouTube, it's pretty demanding in that everything you do has to look pretty good, where I can kind of get away with it in class with the students, in that I can show them a really crappy demo and they can still get something out of it. And a lot of times the crappier the demos, the crappier ones are typically anytime there's some technology involved, there's always some train wreck that will happen. So I think the best demos I ever did in class were the birds and the skulls. I got several skulls that read pretty nicely in class. So this is coming up. It's looking pretty cool. Now it's not necessarily spot on to the photograph, but I'm looking at it on screen and it's starting to read pretty nice. I like that I like that hot orange and that blue interaction, that green blue. I'm just building a little more textural complexities right in through here. I still have a lot of additional saturation and colors that I can work with there. I'm going to pull, I felt a wet spot, there it is. Alright, I'm going to pull more of an edge right there, pull it down into the shape. I'm going to pull a little more of a highlight right there, and maybe a little bit of one right there. And then right back in here, I'm going to smooth that out, get a little bit of a highlight. But yeah, the students, they like doing the skulls. They get tired of doing the still lifes. So when it's time to break out the skulls, they're ready for it. Okay, that's looking a lot better. I'm going to pull some highlights there. How's it looking? That's looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to throw some highlights up here. And again, I can do some of this. If I really want some to pop, I'll do it with white as well. So actually this one, I'm going to pull this on up. I'm going to do some serious scrubbing right there like that. There we go. That turned out nice. And then I'm going to throw one right in like this. Get a little more water, sorry. There we go. So it's about that modulation. All right, cool. All right, now let me rescue a couple of sharper features that I want, a little more density. Right here's one spot, right in through here. All right, I'm going to throw in, I'm going to get some brown. I'm going to get this burnt sienna and a little more of the burnt umber and a little more of that right there. All right, so that's a pretty dense, dark looking brown. Okay, and I'm going to do a flat brush right in here. Okay, so if I can get it to read right. All right, so there we go. So a little crunchy right in through here. That's scary, wasn't it? So sometimes you just got to do it. So that dry brush, that crunch, and that gives me that irregular thing that I need. All right, and then I'm going to get a little more. Let that dry. I'll deal with that in a minute. I'm going to get some more of that green. I'm just going to glaze in another layer of color right in through here. It just needs a little more saturation. Right back here needs a little more. That's so damn light. There we go. There we go. All right, now we're cooking. All right, I'll throw just a bit of it down here. We'll throw a little more of it right in through here. There we go. How's it looking? I'm going to do a little dry brush right there. We'll do a little dry brush up here. I want the crunch right up here. All right. Now what the hell was I going to do? All right. Now I'm going to go right in here. I'm going to hit some of the darker spots on that dry brush. Just intensify the depth of the crunch. It got kind of crunchy down here too. There we go. All right, these teeth need some more orange. Okay. This one needs a little bit on it. And so does this one. I'm going to throw a little bit right in there. All right, that's drying nicely. I'll be able to do something with that here in a second. We're 1 hour into this marathon skull. That's all right. Again, I'm trying to mentally adjust to just do my thing. And don't worry about the time. I know all the people say keep them under 20 minutes, keep these videos short, but again, I think people are interested in seeing how these things go together. All right, let's look here. I need some more orange. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to knock this all back. All right, start with orange. Again, that's going to soften up all that dark work I did. So I may have to hit that again. I'll get a little more orange on this as well. All right. All right, cool. Back to my subtractive process now. Back to my 1/8 inch brush. And I'm going to hit some highlights right in through here with lifting. I'm going to go after some of those tooth channels. You can really see how that softened up. That's why you've got to be real careful when you're glazing. But I can sharpen those up in a second. There's a nice sharp one right here. I'm going to throw that right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull this up. So trust me, I am faking some of this. Oh, what happened up there? Oh, I'll have to fix that. Actually, while that's drying, I went for my liner here. See that little sucker? That is going to do all the fun cranial work. How dry is it? It's feeling pretty dry. So I'm going to hold back here, and I'm just going to kind of, it's a little heavy. I'll go a little bit brighter there. There we go. It's going to come on down. And we're starting to get to some of the fun stuff. Let me look here. There's another one over here. I'm going to throw a couple real fine things right there. Any others? I'll throw a couple right in through here like that. Yeah, there's some up over here. And up, I'm going to switch back over. I don't need the liner because I want a little heavier crack right here. All right, let's get this crack. All right. Okay, well, I see something I need to do once I get to it. All right. Pull that crack. It's a pretty dense and big crack right up there. Comes all the way over. Comes into this thing like that. Cool. All right. I'm going to sharpen those spots up a little better. All right, then let me just pull that down a little bit. We got a nice crack right along here. All right, that is where I was going to come in and sharpen that up a little more. And then I'm going to cool it off. I need to let this little dab dry a little bit more. Okay. Actually, this is a nice opportunity to do a little splatter action as well. We can put some right down on the chin where it was really crunchy too. Okay. All right, we're getting there. And I seen, this is what I was wanting to do. This little shape right here, I'm going to knock it back a bit. So cool. This is working nice. I'm going to use a little blue. We'll splatter a little more on there. Put some over here. Right on the face right there. And I don't even think I need to worry about any white out today. There's no hot highlights, hot whites. A little more of that green. I'm going to throw it right there on that edge right there. Get a little more form to that tooth. There we go. All right. Hang on, one more thing. I'm going to get a little more of that. I'm going to glaze right in here just a bit more. I'm going to knock it back, make it cooler. Here we go. I'm going to do a little more right in here too. All right, let's get this. We'll throw that blue right there. All right, there we go. That's a fast little Halloween colorful skull. He's pretty toothless, but he was a lot of fun to do. So, hey, happy Halloween. I do hope you got something out of this tutorial, this no timer tutorial. Even though I'm running a timer, I'm trying to ignore it. I do hope you got something out of this, and if you did, please give me a like and a subscribe. Drop me some comments. Share this out to anybody you think might want to get started doing watercolor or start drawing. Head into my video description, and that'll take you over to my website. You'll see all sorts of fun stuff to download, free stuff. There's links over there. It takes you into Amazon. You can buy stuff. If you do, I'll get a small commission. Let's see here. If I'm doing anything on this channel that you think is worthy of any kind of monetary support, please head over to Patreon. Link is in the description. And give me a $5 a month membership. Help keep the lights on, keep the supplies coming in so I can continue doing these free tutorials for everybody. And I have 2 digital products, 15-week, beginner to intermediate. There's a calendar of projects that'll take you through a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, just like in college. And it'd be the assignments that you would get each day for 15 weeks. You can go in and watch some videos and then do those assignments on the calendar that's suggested. I do have a 15-week beginner to intermediate syllabus. It's a multiple page thing where I have some goals and objectives, supplies you need, the videos to watch, and combine that with the calendar. You'll have pretty much essentially what you would work through in the course of one of my semesters in Intro to Watercolor. So get out there and buy those. That kind of support is helpful as well, and I do appreciate it, and I'm going to see you guys in the next demo.